Welcome to the Coaching and Therapy channel. So this channel is quite close to my heart because I train coaches in embodiment. I mean, why? Because if you don't work with the body, you're missing a lot. Whether you're a coach, a therapist, facilitator, whatever, that's how you go deep quickly. That's how you do stuff that's sticky. We have to take the body into account. This channel is sponsored by Dylan Newcomb and Uzazu Embodied Intelligence. Dylan is a genius, quite simply put, and I wouldn't say that about many people in this field. I've been studying with Dylan for, God, the first time was probably 10 years ago in the Netherlands. Speaks fluent Dutch, by the way, as well as Korean and a few other languages. What I love about Dylan is his ability to make models of things, looking at how embodiment works. His system, Uzazu, U-Z-A-Z-U, is really all about state shifting. So I think of him as the sort of master of state changing, how we can shift our state, our client's state, and how we can develop ourselves through those different ways of being. So I think for coaches and therapists, it's like easy to learn, practical toolkit. I've used it myself over the years. So if you want a 3-day online training with Dylan, then look at the link below, or you can go to Uzazu, uzazu.org. And even easier, he's got an embodied assessment there you can do as well. We all love doing these little tests about ourselves, but this is an embodied one. So there you go. Welcome to the Coaching and Therapy channel. I'm going to be on this one a lot just because there's lots of cool people on here. Lots of people, I think, well worth a listen. Embodiment in facilitation is so necessary. So from me to you, welcome.
Welcome back. So again, this is the session on the embodied life, a doorway to presence and meaningful living. The content here is free for 48 hours. If you want to own it, you can purchase a link. We'll be putting this link in the chat, so you can look through there. And I want to introduce to you our incredible speakers for today. So we have Russell Delman here, who is the founder of the Embodied Life School. This is the International Feldenkrais School. He's a trainer of and a life guide from the USA. And also accompanying here as well, Linda Delman, who's an international Feldenkrais trainer as well, and an Embodied Life School senior faculty and spatial dynamics teacher. And so some interesting little extra bits of info that we have here is that both Russell and Linda have been in a 47-year marriage and have been teaching internationally since 1983. And they sometimes led seminars with their 31-year-old daughter on embodiment and social justice. So looking very forward to hearing you share with us, Russell and Linda, your incredible body of knowledge with us, and handing over to you for this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, and welcome to all of you from all over this planet. It's a beautiful day to be embodied.
Yeah. And thank you so much for being here. We obviously wouldn't be here if you were not. So first, just to be clear, we're not part of the Feldenkrais organization any longer. We're very indebted to Moshe Feldenkrais, who was one of our great teachers, and we had a very close relationship with him. But the Embodied Life School has branched off from Feldenkrais. We include it, but we also include sitting meditation and other kinds of movement and learning to listen to what we call the feeling body, how emotions and feelings live within us.
And I would add compassionate conversation.
That's true. So a little bit of history, so you have a sense of...
I'd just like to qualify also a little misunderstanding. Okay. I am not a teacher of spatial dynamics. I was a student of spatial dynamics and still am for many years, and it's part of my work.
Great. So little history, kind of the origin story of this work. It begins actually when I was 18 years old with a broken heart. And isn't it true that for so many of us that it's difficulty that leads us toward awakening, toward learning? So I had a broken heart, and I was lucky or blessed to encounter Zen meditation in an article that somehow went right in. And I started sitting on my own for 5 years without a teacher. And what came really clearly, very quickly. Zen's a very body-based practice. Even though you're not moving, you're very much paying attention to your breathing, to your physicality. And what I realized as I was at university, walking around campus, is that I was lost in my internal dialogue, the yam, 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 yam in there most of the time. I think what I've learned in leading meditation groups is most people relate to that, the sense that we're so often not present with what's happening. So this combination of sitting meditation, for the first time realizing that I was absent 90+% of the time, navigating, not bumping into people, but not here. And what began to get very clear was that when I was in my body, I could be present. And the thoughts, feelings, all that was dominating me could move a bit to the background, could have more space. And so that led me to yoga very quickly. And then with a great, great blessing, we both got to meet Dr. Feldenkrais in 1975. And I began to realize that, oh, this dual path of meditation and movement, studying stillness and movement was key, with one third element, that we needed to learn how to listen to our feelings and how they lived in us and how to communicate from what's living inside of us. And that was the origin of the Embodied Life School, an integrated teaching. And yeah, so we can start right now, actually, in practicing. Most of this call is going to be practice with some theory, some ideas, but mostly giving a sense of, our hope is that at the end of the call, you have some new practices that you can take immediately into everyday life and help you be more present and find that presence is the key. It's the key to being aware, which is the key toward human choice or freedom. That was the connection. Embodiment leads to presence. Presence allows us to be aware. And it's only in awareness that we can make new choices and not simply repeat the patterns of the past. So it begins with being present, which our body is a doorway. So can you feel yourself sitting? If you're sitting right now, if you're standing, feel yourself standing. If you're lying, feel yourself lying. I'll assume most are sitting. And sense your bottom is supported by something. The contact that you make is a sense of weight. And you can feel not only your body, but you can feel what you're sitting on. You have a sense of the texture, the cushiness or hardness. And your feet and legs have some contact. Your feet probably are contacting the floor. If they're lifted up, maybe put them down. And you can feel through your feet that you are grounded on this spot. And you're actually connected to the earth, which is what the gravity gives us this sense of weight, which internally is the first sense as an infant of I am here. I'm not over there. I'm not floating in the universe. I am here. If you get a sense of how your body can bring you right here. Your hands are touching something and likely have some sense of weight to them. So we're sitting, or whatever position you're in, sensing, oh, the very basis of my existence right now, my presence right now is I am here on this spot. Every other place in the universe is my imagination right now. I am here. And as you're sensing that you're here, you can notice that you're not only in your body, you're also in a larger space every moment of our lives. We are in a body and we are in a social and physical environment. Why is this so important? Well, if we get lost inside our body, especially when we have a strong emotion or we're troubled by a certain thought or physical sensation that's challenging, when we get lost inside, we lose our sense of spaciousness. We get narrow, smaller. The physical body is too small for the human being. So as you're sitting here feeling the ground, maybe with your eyes closed, can you sense that you're in a larger space? Your brain is always mapping space, so you have a sense of the dimensions of your room. Open your attention to the ceiling above without looking. Have this vertical dimension, the earth below, the ceiling above. Extend your attention to include those. So you're in your body and you're in this space. Open your attention to the where's the wall to the right of you? How far away? Don't look, just open your body sense. And to the left of you. You feel that there's a change in your physical body when you open outward. And with your eyes closed, can you sense the space behind you just by opening your attention? Attention is the great ally of awareness. So we open our attention backward and we go, oh, I'm here on this spot, but I'm also connected to the space behind me and the space in front of me. Feel that you're in your body, you're in a larger space. So in the embodied life work, this is called ground, space around, which, by the way, sound is a very helpful way to open out of your body into the space around you. Feel it? Open. And the third element of every moment is you are always someplace in your breathing cycle. So as you feel the ground and have just a sense of the space around you, sense that you're breathing. This is a core practice of embodied life, which you can do anywhere. Sitting on a train, waiting in a line, where there's always the ground sensations. You're always in a larger space, and you're always breathing. And these can be a doorway to presence, to stepping out of the unhelpful internal dialogue, to give your brain some other place to go than just your to-do list or what's happening next or what just happened, and coming here.
Seems to me it's also in a way it's a reorientation to the field of gravity and the field of levity, that when we come into the spaciousness while we're grounded and we come into this presence, we're able not only to have spaciousness, but to actually sense, see, receive what is around us. Receive the other person, receive the situation, receive the atmosphere of this beautiful planet, that we are here. And somehow for me, what arises is gratitude.
Mm.
And so these very simple practices, when practiced, lead to this unpacking of gratitude for being alive, for the livingness that we are gifted with when we awaken. So let's sense how we are sitting, as Russell began to lead us through, of sensing the ground. It's so much easier for most human beings to sense this ground when they're sitting. We spend a lot of time sitting, most of us, especially these days. And not only just sensing your breath, but listening to the rhythm, whatever that rhythm is for you now. Just listen a little bit. Is the exhale longer than the inhale? Is there a pause after the inhale? Even slight, and is there something like a pause after the exhale? Notice how just listening shifts our atmosphere as we sit. Do you get a sense that maybe some of this up energy is actually going down a little bit more? For some, it's a relief. We have an awful lot to be up in our heads these days. There's a lot to think about and a lot going on. But coming down just to the simple act of breathing and sensing the ground. I began most of my life with just the joy of movement. I was a gymnast and I loved to fly and defy gravity. And when I met Moshe Feldenkrais, he looked at me and said, "More ground, more ground." And I would say, "Well, I've been really working on grounding for 10 years. More ground, more ground." So here I am, 35 some years after meeting Moshe Feldenkrais, and still learning to be in relationship with the ground, to take it in, to receive it into myself. So I'll share some of what I've been learning, and let's stand and we'll do some practice in standing. I don't need a lot of room, but you need to have a nice spot. Maybe take your shoes off, leave your socks on if it's cool where you are as well as where we are. But yes, here we are. We have these two small platforms called feet that are underneath this entire construction of our miraculous skeleton and body. And just begin to observe where you are on your feet. If you can sense them, maybe just rock a little bit onto the heels and a little bit forward onto the toes. And then find some place where, okay, this is comfortable and I feel supported in standing. And then the breathing, of course, is there. And now begin a very simple exercise that helps us come down in the body. We'll bring our hands up in front of us so that we can see them peripherally. And imagine that this is, let's say this is the water level or the energy level in the body. And we're going to place our attention on this water level. And imagine that as our hands go down, we're actually draining the water, the energy through us. And as the water goes through us at our own timing, we can let go of some of the extra efforts inside and standing, the extra places that are working that we're unaware of, but that they can open and allow the water to swirl around through them and drain down through the body, through the torso, breathing, sensing, allowing the movement of water, the movement of attention sweeping through our physical body. Coming down through the pelvis, out through the two rivers of the feet and legs. And then once again, we'll do this 3 times. Swirling the water through the cave of the head, down through the tube of the neck, letting the water, letting the attention swirl and undo the extra efforts to allow the natural standing to arrive. You can go more quickly on the last time. And just letting it all be freer and freer in your body. And just take a moment. Take a moment, maybe lift your feet and refresh your stance. And sense what it's like to stand now. Just a simple little moment of attention through the body. And observe. We'll do a few things in standing. So right now, just walk around a little bit in your space, a little forward, a little backward. Don't pay attention to anything, just for a moment. Good. If you have a window in your room, maybe look out the window. Move your attention into a larger space, and then return again. So in our standing, in our ground, learning to really enter the ground, we found that over time, more and more people are relating to nature in a new way. And we realize that our life as a human being is so similar to the life of the plant. So we come from seed, we put down roots, and we rise up with our length into our beautiful, sparkling thinking and feeling. So let's come down back into the feet again And imagine that through the softness of the sole of the foot, you have a very strong taproot, one deep root that goes through the bottom of each foot, cuts through the earth's crust, and begins to enter deeper and deeper into the ground, into the earth below you, as deeply as you can, imagining that molten, glowing golden core that you have centuries, eons of root with this earth. You carry your ancestors, all the root before you, and you build it for the future. And you are present in this moment. And you're breathing. And now imagine there's another kind of tree that has all kinds of roots that are more on the surface, but they make an entire circle around you, supporting you in every direction when the wind blows, when things come toward us or after us, around us. We have this 360 degrees of support. And now, as we have our building and building, and this, of course, is a practice, it's a life practice. When we have this basis of building relationship with the earth, we can then rise up through our spine, keeping the connection down with the earth. We can rise up the spine like the stem of a plant. So begin to maybe let's keep our left hand down to remind us that we're grounded. And with the right hand, begin to follow with your attention this upward movement. If you lose it, you make the ground deeper and you have an upward movement. And when you get to the top of the head, you don't stop there because there's another route that is right through to the cosmos, to the stars above, to our galaxy. We live here between the heavens and the earth. We are the human being. And slowly come back down. And change over the hands. Go down now through the right. And up through the left. And see if we can be that balance between the up and the down. Our full length, our upright birthright, and our connection to the earth as breathing, feeling, thinking human beings. Thank you for your attention, and I hope very much that these simple practices begin and inspire a new connection with the ground. Let's come and sit back down again.
One of the things I love so much is that sense of two gravities, that we are drawn to the earth, we are supported in every moment by this great body. This little body and this greater body are always attracted to each other. You can call it gravity, you could also call it love. That's why this is often called the Great Mother, and we are drawn to her, but we are also our vitality, our energy, our inspiration comes from above. And to have both of those.
Well, it's just, as we age in these bodies, what a joy it is to see young people, because they're just so full of levity. They're skipping, they're hopping.
Well,
It's
in these
amazing.
days, up until about 5, when they start looking at their cell phones and start getting pulled
That's
down,
correct.
which is really a danger. Those of you who are young parents,
that levity is like butterflies, and it infuses their light. It keeps them with the light. And as we age, this beautiful gift that I received from Moshe Feldenkrais, this information and experience of my skeleton, of my bony system, and with Jamin McMillan, the spatial body, to really understand this connection down, and that also this light, this upright quality lives as part of our embodiment.
Which brings me to want to say something about Moshe Feldenkrais, because most people watching probably don't know him. I'll say just a little bit about him, because he probably is, at least in our experience, we've been studying movement for a long time, is the greatest genius of movement, and how movement changes the human brain, changes the human being. So he was brilliant in movement. He was the highest ranked Caucasian in judo when he was in France. He was born in the Ukraine, traveled without his family at 13 to Palestine, and on and on. The story is amazing. I don't have time to tell you the whole story, but he was very developed mentally, intellectually, mathematics, PhDs in electronics and math, and very
Seven languages.
and very developed physically. Wrote his first book on unarmed combat, and so really a remarkable human being. But his main thing, which takes a lot of time to really get, is, see, his work is brilliant at helping people in pain, people with brain injuries, but he was really so interested in what is awareness, and how can movement help people become more whole, more full. And the icing on the cake was that they move better, that their posture is better and their breathing's better. But that was the icing on the cake of awareness. So he called his work Awareness Through Movement. And he was brilliant at helping people to unwind habit patterns so that new things could happen. And I'll give you just a quick story from my life about how these little changes in our physicality, for example, just put your fingers, interlace your fingers, right? Everybody has a dominant way where one thumb is on top and all the other fingers are down. If you move all the fingers over one, notice that that really feels different. Go back and forth a little bit. And by the way, this is not about dominance of hand. You can notice, if you pay attention, that your elbows, your shoulders even go through a big change if you really listen. But more than the physical change, because your hands are so dominant in your brain, in your motor cortex, a little change in your hands, and then we might do some movements with our hands interlaced, we call it non-habitually, changes the background state of your brain. And so he had all these little ways of interrupting pattern. But what was fascinating was he asked us to question all our patterns. And so for me, in my first year of training with him, I was this very dedicated. I was 22 years old, but I'd been a vegetarian for 4 years, and I could tell you that it was 4 years. It was an identity, and I was teaching yoga, and I was doing all these. I was very proud of my state. And coming home from the training one day, I saw these people driving into the Doggy Diner in San Francisco. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, they could eat broccoli, but I couldn't eat a hamburger. And it struck me how compulsive I was. Not that a vegetarian is bad, but that I was attached to my identity as a vegetarian. So I went home to Linda, this was 1975, and I said, let's go to a delicatessen. I got a corned beef and pastrami sandwich, the greasiest thing I could think of.
And I nearly died of shock.
And I ate it. And now it's true, I went back to being a vegetarian, but it was that summer, it was so helpful to me to question all my habits. I started smoking cigarettes. And for me, that was healthy because I cast off this rigid sense of superiority. And then I could stop smoking and not have a whole story about it. So he was getting us to question everything. And from the physical body and breaking up the neurological habits, opening space to make it easier to question our habits in relationship, in thought, emotional patterns, that you soften the hard wiring of the nervous system. And, fold your arms, right? You have a way of fold one hand on top, one on the bottom. What if you do it the other way? Can you figure out how to have the other hand on top and the other on the bottom? It's not so easy. Can you go back and forth? Crazy little things. He would have us standing on the opposite leg when you put on your pants, or brushing your teeth with the opposite hand. These pattern interrupters are surprisingly helpful for coming awake in everyday life.
No, also I did a second training in Amherst, and he used to have 200 of us on the floor, and he would ask, could we all move at the same time by listening to one another, not by looking at who. Could you sense the person who was lying to the above your head, below your feet, to each side? He was beginning to invite this spatial education of opening up doors, of interacting, rather than just having it all be about each individual. And some people missed that point. I think they thought it was just a fun thing to do. But it's so important to work with our inner life, to work with ourselves in the world. And we are always in relationship, as Russell said at the beginning. We're living in an environment where everything is alive.
Yeah, it's so important to remember that our embodiment is a key for staying related, staying in relationship with another. I mean, how many of us, those of you who are in relationships that are long-term, but even those who just beginning relationships, know how when we get triggered, when we get activated by something someone else has said, by some fear, by how easy it is to get hijacked by our history, by our emotion, by our thoughts. I'm not lovable, they're not going to love me, or they shouldn't be doing that, what's wrong with them? Or our judgments of self and other get activated. Have you ever felt that? So we get triggered. Well, what happens when we get triggered is we exit our presence. We no longer can make new choices about interacting. And in 47 years of being together, we've had lots of opportunity to experience how our embodiment helps us to tolerate more difficult energy by being grounded and breathing and not getting lost in the reaction, but sensing the world around. But when we do get activated or triggered, how to have a pathway back home. That, okay, there's all those thoughts and feelings, and I'm sitting on this spot. I can feel this breath. And let's actually just take a moment.
Well, that's what it seems to me is one of the keys, is the taking of the moment.
There you go.
The pause.
The pause.
And we're able to just stop for a moment, realize all the stuff going on there and there. You know, let's pause for a moment.
Yeah. So important to, yeah, if there's one message maybe, pausing, how that would change the political conversations, the personal arguments, if we could step off the train of reactivity, and how helpful embodiment is. Because you need some place to go other than your reactive pattern. Your brain has to go somewhere. So can you feel right now? You can hear us and you can shift attention down. You don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to look weird if you were in a public place, but you could bring some of your attention down. Is that true? That you can hear the words and you can sense I'm sitting. And could you even feel the next 3 breaths from beginning to end? And if that's difficult, you can close your eyes, or you can try with your eyes open if you've had a lot of experience working with the breath. And just another few moments. Can you allow a very short pause between the phases of breathing, so you have what we call 4-phase breathing? A brief pause, not holding your breath, just a brief pause. Feel what that's like. So we've got, I don't know, I think 5 minutes or so left, and I'd love to also just say, introduce very briefly what we call the feeling body. That feelings don't take place in your head. They take place throughout yourself. And this is really important to know. Yes, thoughts can keep feelings going or make them stronger or less strong, but to have direct contact with what we call the feeling body is so essential.
So there's this very simple gesture that we'll introduce. Just taking the left hand and just placing it in the middle of your chest. And begin to sense the shape of your hand, the weight of your hand. Maybe there's a temperature you can sense. And maybe your bony structure and your tissues can sense your hand. And that your hand can sense them. It's a reciprocal connection. And observe any changes in your inner and outer atmosphere.
We often like to say, hello in there, as if the I, the true I of awareness, is a key part of our teachings. The true I of awareness is always larger than the temporary state. The thoughts and feelings and body sensations of now are always changing. But the true I of awareness that was here when you were little and is here now is the same field. And when we grow the ability to sense I am the awareness and I'm taking care of the feelings that are living in here. Now, why here? Well, there are more than 60,000 brain cells connected to feeling information going up through the vagus nerve to your brainstem. They're both here and in your abdomen. There are hundreds of thousands of brain cells. These learn, these change, and they mostly communicate upward.
You get a gut feeling.
A gut feeling, your heart gets open, gets broken. These are physiological events before they're psychological events. And to be able to sense not only I am here, but how am I? And to be able to be a large enough presence that you can be the best friend of the multitude that lives in every one of us, right? The angst, the anger, the joy, the am I good enough thoughts, the I'm better than everybody thoughts, whatever. The multitude living within is met by this presence. Our embodiment gives us the gift of that also.
Thank
Hello,
you so
David.
much for being with us today.
Yes, we so appreciate your listening. Those of you on recording, we hope that you also can receive the gifts of this time together. Hello, David.
Russell and Linda, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And we've got time for a couple of questions in the room, if you'd be happy to respond.
Sure.
So one question is wondering what advice you'd have to offer someone who would have difficulty practicing sitting or being in stillness. How would you advise them?
Yes. So lie down, do some very slow movement first. This is one of the brilliant parts of the Feldenkrais work, is sometimes we can just use our awareness and not move. Sometimes we move very subtly. And sometimes we have these big rolling movements. It's a very big range. So for those who just being still or just sitting is really challenging, go into positions that are more available, more comfortable, and begin with subtle movement, following a few complete breaths, or just turning your head and sensing. So you grow the ability, not pushing yourself so much that you're over your comfort zone, but not hanging back so much that you're always jittery.
Start where you are and work with comfort. There are very few people who are comfortable sitting. Moshe Feldenkrais sat on a stool at 80 years old in front of me all day long, every day, and I couldn't. I was uncomfortable. So we start where we are and we just grow movement. We grow our comfort and we take rests and we bring humor into our life as well. It really helps.
Something else, David?
Yes, we're wondering if there are any common myths about your practice, and that you could share. If there are any misunderstandings that are very common, you could help people.
Yeah. Yes. One very common misunderstanding is that embodiment is about the body. we don't work on bodies. We work through our embodiment. We are a whole organism of thoughts, feelings, sensations, connection to the physical world, and as we open in our awareness, connection to the ethereal world, to the larger space. And so embodiment is ultimately not only a human path, we could call it a spiritual path.
That's delicious. Thank you. I just want to check, Linda, whether you were going to speak then as well. We've got another couple of questions.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I was so taken by what you said.
That was profound.
We'll take another question.
Let's take another question.
Okay, so regarding pain points for people that are following this path, what's the most common reason for people failing or giving up? And is there any encouragement or something that would get them past that initial resistance, essentially?
Yes.
Well, I would say, these are all in a way very simple things, but we know that simple can be the most difficult. Support is so important. It's not easy on our own to meditate, to pay attention, to awaken on our own. It's a difficult thing to do. For some people, they're very good at that, but most of us need support. And so we offer our students a lot of support. And I hope that those of you watching have a friend, have someone else that you can meet who's on a path of awakening.
Yeah. We need to see that this is revolutionary work. Coming awake is revolutionary. Everything in our culture, more and more and more, is trying to hijack our presence, trying to get us lost in consumption, lost in our heads, constant stimulation, and it's happening at younger and younger and younger ages. I worked for a long time with kids, and 40 years ago, kids were more in themselves than they were 20 years ago. And there was a big change. I don't work with kids so much anymore, but I started to see how the culture is taking over brains. And we need to stand up in these bodies with our awareness to say, no, I am an independent, aware, free human being, and I will embody the dignity of that.
And I think it's quite wonderful in America that whatever schooling is happening, it's having to be outdoors. And so I'm so happy that the children can be outdoors more and more, because when we were young, our parents couldn't get us to come inside. But nowadays you can't get them to go outside. And that's a very big change in levels and levels and levels of our new reality. It speaks more than we would ever have time for.
That's beautiful. I got shivers then when you spoke that awakening is a revolutionary act. Yeah, it's really powerful, and I think it really speaks to how we're on the shoulders of giants. With the roots that you bring, it's really powerful information and embodied knowledge. So thank you both so much for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yes, lovely to meet you, David.
So I just want to speak to the people watching briefly here. So the next session in this channel you can find in the coffee break link, which will be shared with you in the chat here. And that session is Beyond Words, using movement to support authentic relationship, with Erica Hornthal. And also, if you want to continue the conversation, then join the Embodiment Conference Facebook group. The link will also be shared here, but you'll be able to find that from the website. And also to find out more about Russell and Linda Delman's work, if you go to www.russelldelman.com, and that link will also be shared in the text below. And I've just been blown away by this talk, and it really reminds me why I'm doing this. Partly, you know, for the live experience, and then also, you know, the access to this material, to be able to engage with that again, to be able to access this resource is so potent. So that has me show up, and you can purchase that for a really relatively token amount to upgrade your membership and be able to not miss anything and digest this in your own time. It's one of those ironies that we're talking so much about getting away from the computers and the phones, but yet I think it's kind of warranted to use that platform for doing just that. It's like an antidote.
Connecting these days.
Yeah, it's a paradox. We can transform it. That's human freedom. That's human capacity to take what can be negative towards the human being and turn it into a life-giving something. I'm so grateful to Mark and the other people who created this event to move this throughout the world in this way. So
absolutely,
yeah.
So yeah, so if you're watching and you want that broader view, please do sign up and also support the aspect that we're able to spread this for free to so many people for the live access. It's quite incredible, really. So yeah, and just in oh, and also to mention the additional notes, audios, and learning lists that you get with that as well. So
David, Russell, Linda, can I interrupt real quick? There's one quick question. It was asked twice. Could you repeat the name of the person you mentioned who worked with awareness and movement and habitual patterns? It was right around when you were telling.
Moshe Feldenkrais. Feldenkrais. That's you. If you look at our biography, you'll see how to spell the name. Feldenkrais. He is really worth looking up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just the last couple of words from both of you. If you've got a top tip that you could share on embodiment, what would be the leaving message that you'd like to have with people on replay or people watching live now?
Well, my top tip of the day is kindness. Kindness to oneself, to say hello in here. And really just 5 times a day. How kind can we be to ourselves as we're living in these times right now? And the more kindness we can give to ourselves, that is shareable with others who need it so much right now.
I'll take 2. But I would add, just to realize the power of pausing, stepping off the train of thought, stepping off the train of doing, stepping out of the current state and just entering through your body. I'm here. These thoughts are temporary, these feelings, this state is temporary. I am here as a free being. And if anybody wants to ask questions or anything, just go to the website. You can go to the office at russelldelman.com, email, and we will respond.
And there's many, many more practices that I offer on YouTube with Linda Delman. So they're free.
Thank you both so much. So that's the incredible Russell and Linda Delman, and tune in for further talks within the conference. Thank you all for watching, and thank you both so much for your presentations. Thank you.